There are times we should be quiet. There are days for letting go. But when matters seem important, speak up, let others know. With so many ways to speak up, like a sign, a smile, a shout, if we could make things better, why not let our words come out? When you're being introduced and they get your name all wrong, speak up. Say your name. You are you, and you belong. When someone spreads a rumor and you're sure it isn't true, speak up, state the facts. Truth can open up our view. When a rule just isn't fair or has gotten much too old, speak up, work for change. Justice comes when we are bold. When a person wounds another with their words or with their fist, speak up, be an ally. Safety comes when we persist. If you see someone who's lonely or they're having a bad day, speak up, share a moment. Kindness goes a long, long way. When you make a small mistake, even if you didn't know, speak up, say you're sorry, learn to listen, learn to grow. When you have a special day or you're given something neat, speak up, shout your thanks. Gratitude makes life so sweet. When you're sad or packed with feelings and the world seems dark and gray, speak up, ask for help. Friendship chases clouds away. When trees and creatures suffer from our quick and careless choices, speak up, rally others. Nature needs our mindful voices. When you know a scary secret about someone getting hurt, speak up, tell a grown-up. Courage sometimes means you blurt. When the group is taking one path, but you know it's not the way, speak up, change directions. Leaders don't always obey. While some people speak up loudly, and your words might whisper quiet, one voice can make a difference, so don't hesitate. Go try it. I offered to offer some reflections today alongside Reverend Krista. These are obviously not the reflections I hoped to be offering. Like many of you, I woke up in a fog on Wednesday morning. It hung low and thick in the trees along our street, and equally low and thick in my soul. 4 days later, the fog is still thick as I ask myself and all of us, how shall we, Unitarian Universalists, who have covenanted to transform the world through liberating love, how shall we practice the holy work of repair in this post-election America? The question takes several forms. First, how shall we do this for ourselves, for this community, and for others with whom we will partner in seeking human flourishing and planetary well-being? Tenderly, because our grief is deep, our fear is real, and our hope is raw. And we are weary. From Donald Trump's first term to the COVID pandemic, from the murder of George Floyd to the economic anxiety felt by so many, from record heat and extreme weather to the past year's turbulent presidential campaign, our spirits have been stretched and strained. Add in the unique challenges in each of our own lives, and it is no wonder that we are weary. No wonder our grief is so heavy our fear so palpable, and our hope so breathless. We will need more than tenderness to do this work, but without tenderness, we can't even begin. I say also with humble accountability, because we need this braver space more than ever right now. And that need asks of each of us to be our best and braver selves here, because the depth of our connection is our best protection. So let us be courageous in our care, generous with our empathy, and humbly accountable to one another as we create space that is brave enough to hold all our hearts as we lean on each other. Also, with gratitude, because although this work is hard and we are weary, we are blessed to be working hard and feeling weary together. And by engaging with others who do share at least some of our hopes for the world. This may mean reaching out to our elected officials at local, state, and national levels to ensure that whatever our democracy can do to care for people and the planet, it does. It may mean forming new and surprising alliances with unexpected partners, because right now repair is fundamentally practical and even desperate work. And it will mean attending to the wounds in our wider community wherever they're found, because to practice repair is to be indiscriminate in the healing we offer and in the good we strive to do. There is, of course, a second, harder question to pose. How shall we practice the sacred work of repair in strained relationships with family and friends, co-workers and neighbors who in recent days have betrayed our deepest values and endangered our very being, who cast their votes for a future that now holds multiple perils for us and for those we love, and for so many of the most vulnerable in our society? How do we practice repair in these fractured relationships? I think with clear self-awareness and fierce grace and an open ache. Clear awareness, because as much as we must rise to the challenge of this moment, none of us is asked to endanger ourselves in relationships or conversations that are toxic to our soul. Simply put, it is important that we know that some repair must be left wisely to the liberating love of others. And with fierce grace, because none of us is called to compromise our values or our love for sake of a false peace. So we practice repair by continuing to lift up resolutely and without apology the sacred diversity of all persons and their right to flourish in our society. It may not be in our power to change our neighbors' hearts and minds, but when we draw on the truth of our lived experience and the depth of our understanding to express our hearts and minds with fierce grace, we invite liberating love to do its work silently in their lives. And I say with open ache. That is, as we are able to, we must listen past our sense of betrayal to the desperation that led some of these persons to compromise their morals to meet their perceived needs. I call this open ache because it will be painful and it will be more than some of us can do. But while repair never demands that we compromise our values or loves, it does ask that we attempt to fathom the deep disillusionment, anxiety, or isolation beneath other worldviews and other votes. No question, It would be easier to reject and revile them. But the work of repair requires that some of us sustain an open ache if we hope to heal the fractures. And not only in our personal relationships, but also in the Democratic Party, which manifestly failed to connect its policies to the experience of the working class. Finally, there is a third and even harder set of questions to pose. We know unresolved trauma lives in human bodies. It lives too and long in the body politic. The misogyny and genocide, racism and xenophobia, homophobia and transphobia, the relentless exploitation of laborers and the land, all these injustices and more have become the collective trauma of our national identity. And now the lack of an honest moral accounting with these worst choices of our past has compelled some of us, some millions of us, to project those echoes of past choices onto our future, couching them in rhetoric chosen to amplify a culture of intolerance, nationalism, and the persistent threat of violence. How then do we practice repair when the post-election reality promises to wreak havoc on our common life and the natural world? Havoc still being planned out as we wait with dread. How do we imagine the practice of repair when the system will not actually be broken, but will be doing exactly what it is being designed to do: reward the rich and punish the poor, dismantle our already weak safety nets, erase hard-won rights, gut public education, and if possible, reduce democracy to political charade? When rupture itself is the purpose of those in power, how then do we practice repair? We cannot know in advance, but I will say this much because it has been true in earlier struggles for justice. It may be that the practice of repair in our civic life will mean, at least at times, that we break the ordered disorder of unjust systems, that we join in solidarity with others to oppose, impede, and when possible, dismantle those policies that threaten the peace of people and the planet. Indeed, should the governing system become so oppressive as to constitute in practice the enemy without, in that fraught moment it may become our task, our duty, even our joy to so fully embrace liberating love that we practice repair by being the enemy within. It was Theodore Parker, the famous Unitarian minister who in 1853 first spoke of the long arc of the moral universe and its sure bend toward justice. I suspect that many Unitarian Universalists today are less sure of that bend. Few of us presume that anything is guaranteed, let alone the triumph of the good. But we do presume that the values we share, centered on liberating love, aspire to promote the good. And as we practice the sacred work of repair, those shared values serve as levers by which we ourselves might, working together bit by bit here and there, bend that long arc toward justice. This morning, our world within and without is longing for repair. This is holy work. This is our work. Let us begin.
Like David, this is not the repair sermon I was hoping to be giving this morning, but it's actually not too far off for me. Because while it may feel like things are shifting dramatically on our national landscape, the work of Unitarian Universalism, the work of liberating love, the work of the spiritual practice of repair was there even before Wednesday's results. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to travel to Montgomery, Alabama, with a number of my ministerial colleagues who are doing transitional ministry right now. And we visited the Equity, Justice, and Inclusion Museum. If you've never been there, it tells the stories of slavery in this country from the time of ships leaving Africa through present-day incarceration. And it was a lot, and it was heavy. But they've opened a new part of the museum, a sculpture museum, a sculpture garden on, I think, 14 acres. It's massive. So with my heart feeling heavy and overburdened for the stories that we have not told well in this country of a history of hurt and oppression, I walked outside and walked the path of art, the path of people reclaiming those stories and retelling them and transforming them through art. And the power of that repair, the power of seeing the way people shaped their experiences into something beautiful, broke open my heart and allowed hope and love to re-enter. It reminded me that repair isn't as easy as saying, I'm sorry. It starts with the telling of our stories and ends with a commitment to change. A number of years back, I read Archbishop Desmond Tutu and his daughter Mpho Tutu's book, The Book of Forgiveness, The Fourfold Path for Healing Ourselves and Our World. If you have not read it, I highly recommend it. If you're not familiar, Archbishop Desmond Tutu won a Nobel Peace Prize for his work on changing the apartheid and doing reconciliation afterwards. And he says, we are created to live in love and connection with one another. When there is a break in that connection, we must have a method of repair. The method we offer is what's called the fourfold path. The first step on the path is telling the story. Then comes naming the hurt, granting forgiveness, and finally, renewing or releasing the relationship. When he talks about this fourfold path and traveling it, he talks about our own journeys of forgiving other people as being the place we need to start rather than seeking forgiveness from others. That learning how to speak up and tell our stories of hurt is the first step. For me, it's easy to go into overwhelm thinking about this, right? Thinking about the scale of the hurt that happens in our world and sometimes even in our lives. And in this moment when many things feel overwhelming, I bring it back to an everyday practice. For me, that is a practice with my kiddo, my 6-year-old, who I'm teaching to interrupt when he's hurt and tell us how he's been hurt. Mommy, I was trying to tell you a story and you interrupted me. Sometimes getting an answer about what vegetable he wants is not as important as letting him finish his story. And it may seem trivial, but often our childhood is where we learn what forgiveness means and how to do the process of reconciliation. And for many of us, for generations, this process was not something that was taught to parents on how to do with their children, was not something that was encouraged in our society. And there are days I think it would be much easier to have an authoritarian style and tell my child to sit down and eat his vegetables. But it doesn't create the kind of world we want to see, and it doesn't uphold our values in relationship with one another. To do that takes time, takes true listening and caring about the other person's as well as our own emotions. To speak up even when the hurts may be small, so that they don't build over time and turn us into this cycle of revenge that Desmond Tutu talks about in the book as well, where our hearts are closed to our own hurt and the hurts of others. Our faith calls us to liberating love. This congregation in particular calls us to understanding and being aware of mindful interdependence in the world, of authentic curiosity about the stories that others may be telling us of their hurt, and authentic curiosity of our own hurts. And also to courageous love. Liberating love is not easy, it takes courage. So in the coming days and weeks and months, how will you practice repair? How will you find those moments to tell your stories of hurt and remind yourself to listen to the stories of others who are also hurting? One of my favorite phrases is hurt people hurt people. If you are hurt, it is much easier to lash out and hurt other people. To break the cycle takes vulnerability and tenderness, and that can be scary as crap. But it's what we are called to in these days. So may we practice repair here in this space with one another, in a space where we know we care for each other and want to hear each other, that we may learn how to do it with one another so that we have the strength and the courage and the skills to do it with others whose conversations may not be as easy to hear or our stories may not be as easy to tell to them. One of those ways of repair is continuing to change and do better as we know better. Our next song is written by Holly Near. And in this song, she ends up changing the lyrics. It was originally written after the murder of Harvey Milk and George Moscone. But a number of years later, she was singing it and she said, what did she say? When we are surrounded by the support of allies, it doesn't capture the lyrics. The original lyrics were, "We are gay and lesbian together." But she said that doesn't capture all of who we are, all of our beautiful queerness and allyship that exists. So she changed those words, and you'll see the changed words on the slide, to "we are all in this together."